Right, good evening everybody. Welcome to the Sip and Sketch Monday evening with myself, Brent Dodd. We'll do a little introduction to what it's going to be about, just in case you are thinking of running for the hills. This is a participatory exercise. So there have been far too many of you that have been sitting on the couch that have perhaps not been involved. And it is a very simple 35-minute to 40-minute step-by-step process of just putting some stick figures together. And we are here to debunk the idea that art is only for artists. That is not true at all. We are going to walk you through the process of step-by-step making an artwork. And the idea is also creating a little bit of awareness during this lockdown period that as over the period of the last, 72 days that boys were away from school, girls were away from school, in South Africa anyway, we've created a little bit of disconnect. And the idea behind the Sip and Sketch with your families, when you get home in the evening, is just that this is a reconnection time. And the idea is that just with a simple Pilot Fineliner, which is a water-based ink pen, it looks a little bit like this, if not exactly like this. You get one with a clip on the top, a little clipper on the top. If you don't have a Pilot Fineliner yet, that's absolutely fine. Just use a pen and you'll be able to scribble your way through. The disconnect that was as a result of lockdown ended up meaning that a lot of people were put into some pretty tricky territory. And in particular, I'm very privileged to work in an educational environment where I'm sort of at the coalface of how kids are learning these days, and in particular, the Maritzburg College School has a hashtag lockdown relief program. It's an initiative that is raising funds to be able to get food into bellies so that boys can learn not just data onto computers so that they can download work, but that hashtag lockdown relief initiative is available on the Maritzburg College website. You can just go to College Foundation, Google College Foundation, whatnot. And if you spend 250 Rand, you get a pretty cool mask. Makes you look like Bane from Batman. And I know the fashions of things of these days. You'll be able to get a pretty cool mask. And it comes in a package. They're not secondhand. So that's quite cool to play with. And we had our first day back at school today. I'm very proud of the boys that really resisted to the urge to jump on top of each other and leap with glee and joy that they were back together as one. Okay, so moving forward together, you have your pen. You'll just need a A4 piece of paper, a very simple A4 piece of paper, preferably 160 gram. The one that comes out of the printer will work, but you want something that's really great to be able to stick some press stick on the back of it, sticky stuff, and stick it on the fridge. However, if this turns out terribly at the end of the night and you think this really isn't for me, it is I accept full responsibility. Put a little comment in there saying this was absolute rubbish and I certainly won't be joining you again. Just give us a little bit of constructive criticism and we will do our utmost to try and be better in the future. Okay, so that, and then at about 20 minutes, 30 minutes into the show, you're going to need a little paintbrush with a dab of water, but I will give you 3 or 4 minutes to top up your sip when we get there so that you can gather your thoughts and thingy. Now, this is just like the classroom. So if I'm going to ask you to stop drawing, please stop drawing. Even though you're at home, this is not like Survivor anymore. We used to have this live where I would be able to come around, and if you were rubbish, I could say it's time for you to go home and you've been evicted. We don't actually, sadly, have that privilege anymore. So you are safe, but it does require that you try and focus on what we're doing and don't look at the person next to you because they are just as nervous as you are, and it is essentially it's just supposed to be fun. And the thing is, the more you scribble, the better it's going to look in the end. This is what we did in our first week. Let me bring that across a little bit. We'll get you zoomed in a little moment. This is what we did in the first week, where it is literally a couple of lines going together. That was about 6 weeks ago. And then we went into a second one that was again quite an interesting landscape piece. Then we went into one that looked at cliffs, and people were very upset. They suddenly said that, no, that's not going to work. But it's also because our camera died 3 times and no one could hear us. And so just give us a thumbs up that you're pretty sure and you're pretty happy with the way that you can hear us. Then we went on to something simple. We got some lovely complaints from New Zealand saying that that bridge wouldn't hold anybody. And that is probably absolutely true. But we had fun building it. And then we looked at another simple landscape looking at depth there. Then last week we went on a journey to Bolivia and had a nice little truck that was going across the drink there. All right, so we are about 4 minutes into our start, and I want you to think about 3 things whilst we are doing this. If you're doing it with your family or you're doing it with colleagues perhaps, what you're wanting to think about is the 3 things that we look at when we're analyzing an artwork. We look at it in terms of its content, what's going on in the artwork. You can just describe what's going on. It might be a cow, or it might be a person, it might be whatever. Content, we look at the form, which is broken down into the line that might be used, the color that might be used, or the tone, what makes it different. And then lastly, the context, the reason it was made, why it was made. And that's essentially how we look at art. Those folk, you go in and say, I'm going to analyze this artwork. It's not that complicated. We just look at it in terms of what, how, and why. And there's some analogies that we can look at there as we go through the drawing. I want to just run those by you again and how they can be similar to the art of being you. Okay, enough talk now. We have got 5 minutes in here, and I want to see us that we get through this before it's bedtime and whatnot. Okay, so I'm going to zoom you in, and we should be able to get going. All right. Give us a shout as to where you're from so that we can, and what you do, and we can perhaps give a shout out. Write your details down the bottom there and share your information so that if there's somebody who might be looking for a service or whatnot, they can see you, and we can help everyone help each other. Okay, so let's zoom you in there. Dun, 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 dun. All right. Don't forget to sip. We don't want you to be terrified. Nerves, that sympathetic nervous system kicks in, and you forget to. Okay, let's get that right. Okay, something might happen in that we get a Panasonic view. We had a little video separator earlier that decided to disappear on us. Okay, let's just make sure that everybody can see that. We've got up to here is the bottom of our work, and then up there's our top. We do need to go down a bit more. If you weren't seasick before, you are now. All right, good. So the idea of doing a drawing is that you are wanting to look at where things are compared to other things. Okay, so let's get going. From here is the center point. You don't want to put a dot there, just want to look and see where things are compared to other things. So that'd be a quarter of the way across there. Then there'd be a quarter of the way across here. That's maybe not necessarily in the center. We want that to be in the center. Quarter of the way up, quarter of the way down. And so if we put lines in, they're generally where things are compared to other things. Okay? And so I'm going to draw some lines, and you want to try and draw those lines in the same sort of way. Okay? Don't worry too much if they are not absolutely spot on compared to what we've got here. If they're generally going in this direction or generally going in that direction, I think you're on the money. Okay. So let's start with our first line, which is going to be coming down from the top left-hand corner here. We've got 1/3 of the way up, 2/3 of the way up, and then we've got the top. All right, so we go from the top left-hand side. Are you ready? I'll give you another 2 seconds. Are you ready? All right, let's go. Watch me do it first, and then you can see. We're going to come across, and then we're going to swoop down here and go straight, and then level off and come off the bottom right-hand corner. So it's a graph, I suppose, that goes left. It's slowly curving down. It comes down straight and then straightens out and then comes off the right-hand side. Nice and easy. And if you didn't get the line quite right to start with, it's not the end of the world. You can go over it again, and I'll come down straight here. And then we get that line to come off here. Right, so you can see mine is a real scribble out. You can get a couple of lines going in there, and it's not the end of the world. Okay. Right, just next to that line, right next to it, what we're going to do is we're going to come again, and we're going to slowly verge away from that line, and then come down, and then eventually come straight off. Right, we want to come straight off the right-hand side here. It's just off the left-hand side. Right-hand side, sorry. Okay, so we get two lines that are, one's gradually coming down, and the other one comes down and sweeps off to the right. Nice and simple. You're nearly there. Okay, that was a terrible joke. All right, so from there now, what we're going to do is we're going to just trickle along on the top here. We're going to create that line. Let's just make that line go all the way off the top right-hand side here. So where you started, let's get a dotted line, scribbly line going off there. So we now have our three lines. It is a horizontal line. All right. There we go. Okay. So now we've got our three lines. Nice and simple. Okay. So from here now, what we're wanting to be able to maintain is a line that goes along. And then as we come down here, we want to now move away and go up and stay straighter and go straight off the line there. All right, so we've come down and we're staying straighter, straighter, and then meeting up with our line on the other side there. Nice and simple. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to run another line quite close to it, another line just on the top of it there. So we're about from the center, right in the center of the page. There we're going to run our tiny little line. It's about 2 millimeters up from that last one we did, and we're going to run parallel until we get to about a quarter of the page off the page here. And we're going to stop there. Nice little straight line that runs parallel there. And then again, one that is just above that, about half the distance again, and off to the right. Let's start off to the right a little bit, and we're going to come and run another parallel line and run just past it. So we're starting just after it there, and we're going to run just past it there. So we now have those three lines. Okay, hopefully everyone can see there. Remember, sympathetic nervous system is probably terrifying you, so have a sip. Nobody enjoys making art with a dry mouth. Okay, so the same thing is going to happen here now. What you want to do is come down, and we're going to separate here, and we're going to have a straight line down here. On the left-hand side, let's create a nice straight line there. Okay, so it starts off, if we were to come down from the left-hand side of this little straight line that we did, we came down at about a 45-degree angle. If you were to continue going, you would end off the bottom corner, bottom left-hand corner. So you want to start just on the left-hand side of our line there, straight, and it's going to follow on the outside line, nice straight line that's going to eventually join up again on the bottom, just before the bottom of the page there. Okay, and then just next to that again, up on the left of it, we're going to do another parallel line that's going to come down to just past that line as well. So we've got a nice double line there. One straight one, and on the left one, another straight one. So we've got those two lines there now that are coming towards us. Okay. Nice and simple. And we're nearly there. What we're going to do now is try and keep it nice and simple. Horizontal line is going to join one line to the next there. Nice horizontal line there. Nice and simple. Horizontal line. And we're going to come towards us, towards the right-hand side. Take a little gap, and then we're going to do another horizontal line. All right? So we're breaking this up. We're creating like a little ladder. Take a little gap, and then another horizontal line, and then a fourth horizontal line, and a fifth horizontal line, and a sixth horizontal line. All right? And then let's have a gap. Leave a little bit of space there, and then we're going to have a seventh horizontal line. Make sure it's horizontal and it's not sneaking up to the right-hand side there. You don't want to lose yourself there. And the same gap again, and we're going to have another horizontal line, eighth line, and then another gap again, ninth line, and then finally a 10th line. Okay. So now, what we've got, where we had our lines join, we can run our line directly straight down. So the top left-hand corner there, we've got it horizontal, then we come straight down to meet our other parallel line. We come forward, we've got our horizontal, we then have another vertical. All right, so then you're creating a little brick, so to speak. All right, now if we take that gap and we come down, we do this next line again. We come across and we come straight down. And the next one, come across and come straight down. So we're joining these lines by creating a vertical where that horizontal ended. Okay, right through to the front here. Horizontal comes straight down to a vertical. Horizontal comes down to a vertical. Very nice. Okay, so we've got this nice little line of horizontals going here. Now, the last little trick here is we want at the front here to create another horizontal at the bottom where it's going to meet up and create a little box there. You see that creates a little box at the front. And then from that bottom part, we're just going to continue that line forward out off the page here. There we go. Nice and simple. Okay, now the idea is that we should be able to replicate that again on the other side here. And what it might be easier to do is let me just zoom you in a little bit here. There, so those lines are a little bit smaller, a little bit more difficult to see there. So we're going to do the same sort of thing again here. We are going to do horizontals. All right, this first horizontal, the second horizontal. The third horizontal is nice and close to the second one there. The third horizontal is quite close. The fourth one, and then the fifth one's close again. And the sixth one, seventh one's close again. Eighth one's wider, close again. So it's like a train track. Okay, so we've got that coming towards us there. Oh, we suddenly lost ourselves there. Okay. Right, that's enough fiddling there. Let's now get on to something that's going to be a little bit more exciting. A little bit easier, perhaps. At the top right, top left-hand side here, we've got the option to make cauliflowers. Right? Cauliflowers means that you just wobble along, making little clouds, cloud shapes. All right. Now, cloud shapes are not. You can't make cloud shapes that are triangles, so to speak. So these are not cloud shapes. All right, you can't make triangles. That's not cloud shapes. And you don't also want to have cloud shapes that are a uniform geometry either. You want to really use a little bit of artistic license and squiggle your way over, nice and simple, all the way across until you're off the page there. You just keep repeating. Now that's where there's a lot of artistic license. It doesn't have to be the same, and it just keeps that randomness going. It's exciting. Okay. Now we've got this gap in the middle here, where we've got this gap here. what we're going to do is we're going to start by creating a vertical that's going to wobble all the way up to here. So we're going to take a line that's in this big triangle. Right, it's a bit of an isosceles triangle here. Right, and then we're going to start on the left-hand side, and we're going to continue up away from that one and veer up to the left there. Okay, so it's creating a V. We're starting off, and we just wobble our way up. This is where it can get a little bit terrifying for some folk, because you're like, what do you mean by it's just wobbling? It can't do that. What does the wobble mean? Well, it is literally just you can wobble your way up. It doesn't have to be accurate here. You can get away with a little bit of give and take. Okay, and then as you've got halfway up, you want to break that off and create another V. Nice and simple. Nice and simple there. And you can do the same thing again with that left-hand branch, another little V again. So we're creating a little drainage pattern there. Just a vertical drainage pattern. And as we go up again on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side V, you're going to come up and you're going to do exactly the same and create a little V. So your V's end up being above your cauliflower shapes, and they're at different heights going along there. Okay, and so now what we're going to do is try and now develop the idea that we can create a forest at the back here by doing the same concept but inside at the back here. So you will create little V's going up, 2 little V's, and then off those V's you can do other little verticals. And you can do them at the back here. But you want to avoid them being totally geometric. Where you've got the tops of your cauliflowers, you will have the tops of your V's going up. All right, so you'll get them to join and end up at the top there. And these will serve as the base of your forest. And then you can break those V's up as you get further and further away there. As you get further up to the top, you can just break them up. So you can get going with that, and you want to be able to do a V, then have another V on top of that, and then tiny little V's on top of that. So you can create your lovely little forest, and this is sort of like the generic way of creating a forest. It's actually quite good fun. Nice and simple. All right, and if we're thinking about, we can go over our foreground here. We're thinking about the analysis of our work here. Here we're using line. We don't really know what the content is. So, and the content is always going to be so different that I think you've just got to be content about your content. Hope that it's right, but like life, as long as you give it a good go and just be content with what you're doing, you should be okay. When it comes down to the form, when they're analyzing how the artwork was made or how you were made, we're thinking about the direction, which is the line. Direction line's going in is the direction that you're going in. If you ask yourself that question now, what direction am I going in? Okay, and that direction is sometimes governed by, if we look at line, the direction you're going, it's also got to do with color and the different types of color. And color is variety. And what is it that makes you different in the direction that you're going in? All right, and the next thing is to create tone. Now, tone in here, if we were to create a tone for our little trees, and this is a general rule that you can use for making trees, is that we've got our lollipops, all right, that we learned when we were kids. Then our V's came off of that, all right. The light comes down, and if this were to be a ball, the bottom of the ball would be dark, all right, and the top of the ball would be light, and then it would cast a shadow here. All right, so the same idea is that with each of these, you would have balls on the trees that would be dark down the bottom, on the right-hand sides, there, and those spheres then continue to create a shape that would be your cauliflowers, are lots of these little spheres in the trees here, all right, that all have these shapes that eventually create, and these will come together when you put water on top of them just now. You'll think, that is the biggest load of scribbling. The more scribbling, the better it gets. Okay, so we want to now do that in here. If we say, for example, we've got a little bit of scribbling. Let's start with this tree, and I'm going to do an example in the front here. Okay, so let's put a little scribble around our tree in the front here. And then around this top of each one of these little V's I went out, I'm going to create another little sphere. And then inside one of those, I'm going to scribble down the bottom right-hand side of it. So remember that we've got the light coming down from the top, and we're going to, let's make sure that you can see all of this here. we're going to then scribble down in each one of these. Okay, so that we're creating this on each one of those. And the reason you can see the top of the one is because the dark that you put behind it. So we start seeing positive and negative shapes. Okay, so now the idea is that we want you to be able to continue doing that in the background area as well. So you've got your vertical coming up, and you can pick at the end of one of your little verticals there, you're going to create, you don't have to draw a sphere, but you can just use your intuition and create a little U, scribble a U in there. The letter U, that's a cup for light. All right, and you can get that little cup to continue. You can make little cups of light and big cups of light, because it's going to create those little spheres of form in the background there. And this tonal variation, all right, is what creates the form, the three-dimensional reality, all right? And we keep going with creating these little U's throughout the whole thing. You've got a sense of direction, understanding what it is that makes you different. And if you can create three-dimensional reality out of that difference, that's when you start becoming content about your content. I'll run that one more time, where if you can create reality out of your difference in direction, so what is it that makes you totally unique? You want to be able to start creating three-dimensional reality out of that. Because it is so unique to you, you cannot afford to get to the end of this thing called life, which we sometimes get lost in thinking it's a dress rehearsal. You want to be able to know that by the end, that unique thing that was you, you were able to share it. You didn't take it with you. You do not want to get to the end and have those things standing over you saying, I came to you and you alone to make that stuff. And now you're taking it with you. You didn't share it. And there's something unique about you. And I want you to think, what is that thing that makes you unique? And are you using it every day? Are you using that uniqueness? Because it comes naturally. I'm not talking about talent. All right? I'm talking about sometimes a thing that you perhaps shy away from because it makes you different. Well, that thing is so unique and beautiful. It has such a lovely relevance. And sometimes takes people a while to recognize what it is. But as a team, you use each other's differences. Imagine how amazingly strong that makes you. You cannot be stronger once you start using all your uniquenesses, because no one else has got those. It becomes an exponential extraordinariness, which isn't a word, but this is art, so it's fine. Okay, so I think we're a little bit low there. Let's lift you up. All right, we'll come back to the bottom part. Okay, so we're scribbling along there. We are 20 minutes in here, so we've got to start moving now. All right, so now with this front tree here, what we're going to do is we're going to just scribble in the trunk a little bit more there. Just want to know if can you just run that by yourself again. What are those things that people talk about when they're analyzing an artwork? They talk about the content, the form, and then the context. Right, the context is how we're able to apply those things into a situation. Okay, the why. Why do we do things? Why do we do the things that we do? And the context is usually how the whole composition comes together and achieves a reality. And it's ultimately the very clever puzzle of all of these shapes coming together to create a narrative. And that composition will, without a doubt, every time satisfy the context if you get those initial stages right. Being content about your content, you will never get it wrong. Okay, so I'll come back and clarify that in a little bit now. From this line that we've got these lines coming out here, what we need to do is establish, I want us on the left-hand side here, let's go in a little bit closer here, just down to the bottom here, let's go focus back on the bridges. So we're going to say, on this little bridge here, we've got on the left-hand side this end of it. Let's take it to create our verticals there. Make the verticals the same height. Remember, they must be vertical, not going out to the left-hand side. straight up verticals. All right, we should have some straight up verticals there. Should be nice verticals. And think about how big your ones were on the right hand side there. You want to make your verticals the same sort of length on the left hand side, yeah? So these things match up. All right. Okay. And what you should be able to see now is that once you've done that, I'm going to zoom you in very quickly because you'll be able to now replicate this concept. We are all individuals. Each of us are these little blocks. I'm going too close there. This little block here, you're going to match them up. The bottom, the top. Those three there. Content, form, and context. Those three come in. And at the bottom, let's just collect it across here. And that vertical. Okay, so we're making a little brick out of that. And the front side of our brick here, we're going to just scribble in there. Okay, so let me do that again. From the one line that came down, we're going to come forward. So we're repeating that line, up, and then a horizontal. And then we're scribbling in the front part of it there. All right, so we're coming in again here. We're going to complete that line. It's another parallel line that comes in, and then a horizontal. You've got to be careful of making sure that you're joining the long spaces and not the short spaces, because that will look somewhat odd, but it is quite like, we're going to try and get that to continue going straight, parallel line again, and then a little horizontal to join up with that horizontal at the top there. Okay, and then again, we keep those parallel lines. Now you just got to make sure on your right hand side that you have a little vertical so it completes the brick. All right, we come down again at the front here. My space is not big enough there. Okay, and then finally the one on the front here. Very nice, big flat front there. Okay, so we see these little bricks are coming nicely towards us there. Oh, let's zoom out so you can just... And then what we're going to do is the exact same thing on the other side. All right, we've got some nice big gaps on the other side there. All right, we want to be able to scribble in a horizontal gap on the far side there. Okay, and then we take that little gap, and then we come down and create a little square on the front. And got it. So just have a quick look across the other side. On the right-hand side there, we've got our line that comes down. Our three lines are already drawn for us. We then just create a little square on the front, or rectangle, depending on the shape. And we scribble that rectangle in. We take the gap and scribble that rectangle in. So we'll have three of those on the far side there. We have a little gap and then a rectangle. Then we've got quite a nice gap coming up there until we get our last two little squares at the front here. Little square, and then last square right at the front. So we see that this is they are little gaps that are a little bit different as they come towards you. Yeah, there are some gaps there that come in. All right. So once you've got those colored in, we now need to just quickly create a whole lot of form around this. So I'm going to zoom you right out now, because you should have that all blocked in. This idea is that we've got from this line that goes here, if we were to join up our little line here and run it out, it's going to eventually join our line that goes away there. Okay. So we've got our line that joins away there. So we have then from there, that last little pillar that we had, right, we're going to have a little, give yourself a very light little line going out to the left-hand side here. Just a very light little line as a sort of construction, give you an idea where this construction is. All right. We're getting yourself a little bit of construction there, because what we're going to do is take a nice drop down to be about, if we were to take the distance from there to there, about halfway down, we're going to drop that line down there. So we see this dropping down into a little riverbed there. And then again, we've got a parallel line in the same direction as our brick lines at the top here, coming right down until we get to the foreground again here. Okay, so I want to do that one more time so that we don't get too lost there. Our last brick in the foreground here that we stopped at, we want to give ourselves a little, just an idea that we're going off to the left there. Where we dropped down, we then came that parallel line towards us, which would be the bottom of our bridge, so to speak, coming into the foreground. Okay. All right, so if you haven't yet perhaps figured out where this might be, I want to take a one, we get our little gap there on the other side, and we're going to run our line that came across there. We want to try and continue it out off the right-hand side here. So if we have that line that comes off the left-hand side there, let's get it to come straight through onto the other side. Okay, so what we're having then is, if we were to draw little curves going down on this right-hand side here, we'll notice that this is a little gully that goes down into that side on this side there, and we can just scribble that in into the background there, making sure that you leave out the tops of your bricks, but we are creating a nice little dark scribble in there, the background behind those lines that you've got. So you scribble that in there, you'll be able to get a nice little sense that we're disappearing into a gully on the other side there. What happens then at the same time is you come and you're able to do that in the foreground here on the left-hand side. Now just bear in mind that this, where you've got the front here, let's have a quick look at this bottom left-hand corner. Where this goes out here, you want to have that horizontally. Now, okay. So we go to the stars from this here. All right, I gave you a little clue that we spoke about. This is about something to do with blue. All right, and the Latin for, I think anyway, so we go to the stars, Sicutur ad astra. And this is a shout out to the leaders of Falcon College in Bulawayo, AC Godini. That place still terrifies me. I was an alma mater up the hill at Peterhouse. But each time we went down to Falcon College, we had the nonsense beaten out of us. Very, very strong school and some proper sound principles. And it's really exciting to have their whole leadership team with us this evening. And this is the little bridge that hopefully you recognize crossing over. And the idea is that each time you cross over it, we are crossing over a bridge to somewhere new all the time. And we've got to go across that bridge together. Okay, let's see that we've got that scribbling in on that gap there, that block. And if you can apply this in your everyday life, you think, I sometimes worry about being able to cross to that thing that I've always wanted to do. And you think, it's always very easy to know what we want to do, but a far more difficult question that brings breathtaking clarity is definitely always, what is it that I fear? And it's the things that we fear that definitely stop us making decisions to go and pursue those things that we absolutely love. And so we want to now make sure that we have a lovely understanding here of the strength of this bridge that will carry us across the other side if we just have faith in it. This little side here, if we look at it, it does come down. Let's pick a side there. Let's say that two straight lines. From the middle of your bridge, we're going to have two straight lines that go down to the left. And let's get them to also that have a, so it's like a long brick going down to the side. And then it drops straight down on the side, and then again the last parallel line, and then let's get that to come in and join our side there. So we're just drawing a little pillar out to the side. Okay, two lines off to the side, parallel line, straight down, another parallel line, and then a horizontal going straight back to your wall and back up to the vertical. Okay, and from there then we can draw, just color that guy in. So we've got our horizontal we've got our shape again. The light coming from the top, coming from the side. And we've got to get the idea that now this is going to have some water. And each time we used to go and play down in Bulawayo, they made sure that the train was delayed, so we'd be tired before we ran onto the field or walked onto the pitch. And especially if you didn't have pads, they wouldn't lend you any. And they would always teach us a lesson about you better be prepared when you come to see us, because you're going to get spoken to. And it's about being powerful in your foundations. It certainly taught us to be prepared when we went down the hill. Oh, yeah, gives me shivers when I think of that school. And it's so nice to see that they are still going from strength to strength to strength, especially under the magnificent leadership of David van Dijk. I had the extraordinary privilege of working with at Hilton College for many years. All right, so we've got this now. This is a little riverbed where there's water. The reason I was telling that story about those fields, they were tricky to land on. But actually, when I went there when I was teaching with David, I went up to see Falcon, and when I was teaching with him at Hilton, and I was like, I don't remember these fields being so green. And it's amazing how your fears as a child, they just exaggerate the reality. But I do admit it's a lovely, lovely school. So again, welcome to all of you from Falcon College for being with us this evening. This funny little shape that's going out here, we can do another little shape like that, similar. They are horizontal shapes, which are little shapes that are horizontal organic shapes that are just what could be little puddles in that bottom area. And we're creating a little bit of structure in the bottom here before we end off. And let's just create those little puddles there. And you can just do some horizontals in between them. Now there's absolutely it doesn't have to be accurate at all. They're totally up to you what those little puddles are going to look like. Okay, let's move quite quickly now. Let's finish it off by drawing some vertical lines here. And what we've got is another tree that we're going to do here, but a smaller one. Let's make a little bit of a hedge. So we've got little squiggles. This is like what I think a lot of people are feeling like in South Africa, not having had a chance to visit the salon. This is how crazy your hair might be feeling like. Let's give it a real fray out there. A nice little school fray. And those are these lovely sort of acacia bushes that exist in the Matabele land territories. Right, and then we do another one next to it as well. Another little crazy hairstyle there. Good, looking good. Okay, so what we've got now, the last thing to fill in, that we're looking to fill in here, is as we come around the corner, and we're now able to fill in, and we're going to fill in these lines coming towards us here. This is the path that our road was taking. As we came in here, we come across. So from there, we get a sense of rush coming through, but we want to be able to flare out on the side into that flat area there, as the same as you would flare down towards you on the foreground here. Okay, so take 2 seconds to make sure that you've got a little container of water, a little container of water of some sort, and your brush. I'll give you 2 seconds to do that, so that you can have any brush really. Have your water on hand, so it's nice in there. You can share a cup of water between 3 or 4 of you, and you've got a little brush. We'll come back and do a little bit more drawing just now, but you want to be able to have your brush ready. And now the trick to this is you've got to be very careful of obliterating what you've done, because the water creates an artwork very quickly. The way that you use the brush is going to be important in how it ultimately turns out, because it can just become very dark very quickly, and you want to make sure that your colors stay nice and clean. And so once you've got your water, and your brush. We should be getting ready to go. Now you better not be still working with your pen, thinking that you can improve it. We need to switch across to the brush now. And the big question is Dave Grant's picture better than David van Wyck's, I wonder? Head versus deputy head. Let's see. I would really excited to see who's got pictures. Please post all of them after this. And also Rosie. I don't know if you're alone there on the only girl tonight, maybe with Brenda. But let's do this. Okay, so a little bit of water on the brush. Let's start somewhere where it's perhaps less catastrophically destructive, and you can just go with it. You want to, where all your little flowers were at the back there, the little U's, you can go on top of them. What you might find is that it'll quickly turn the area into darks, so you're just scribbling lightly. You want to make sure that you leave the light. You must make sure that you leave the light. So what we're doing is we're just almost just stabbing the page. And what's nice is that the brush picks up ink, and you can use that ink where there may not have been ink before. So you can water it, you can decorate, and it becomes nice little here at the back there. Don't go back to the water. You want to keep your brush so that it's got a bit of ink on it, because with that ink you want to then, on the top, you're going to create another line of little trees without having had any ink there. So it'll be a little bit lighter, and you've got a little gap between those trees that you just did. And then finally again another little line on the top there, above that even thinner line, which has got a little gap there. Alright. And again that goes across. So what we're getting is a nice little sense of depth that's traveling across on the top there. And with that, if you've still got a little bit of water left on your brush, you want to be able to get rid of that water by just running it on top of your surface of the road here. Let's go back to the brush now, and you want to be able to see now, I've got an idea of how this pen and ink works. So let's go into somewhere where it's a little bit more complicated. Behind the bridge here, we've got to make sure that we want to highlight the tops of our bricks. Alright, so that the tops of the bricks stand out by coloring in the bank behind them. And then what that helps us do is show that there's this river bank in the bottom there. Okay, now again, you're wanting to make sure that you don't wash your brush, because you don't want to wash your brush because you want to keep that ink on it. As the ink runs out, you are going to be again tickling across the surface at the back here. Tickling across the surface at the back here. Alright, we've got that going across the back there. And as you run out of water, it will eventually fade out as well. So you're getting that constant tonal variation. You're getting the tonal variation. Let's pick up some more water and come into the foreground there now. Alright, so now we've got this bank in front of us here, and we're going to scribble that in, and scribble that in, coming up into the foreground there. Shout out to Vicky and Steve from London. It's always great to have them with us. And the folk from Texas, which is looking good. Very nice. So we're colouring in our dark areas there right in the foreground. And the Websters, always good to have you with us. Oh no, I just dipped that into what I shouldn't have dipped it into. That's a mistake. Alright, make sure you don't dip it into the water. Alright, let's colour those little front facades of those bricks in so that they work. And we have got some proper support from my alma mater. You know exactly what I was talking about. Clarissa in London, and Alana, who is an extraordinary artist. Clarissa will know exactly what I'm talking about when we used to get onto that train and head down to Bulawayo. Tell you what, the hospitality though in that food hall, that was one thing to look forward to. It was good food down at Falcon College. So I'm taking this water now and going across the top here of this road. So you've got that creosote that is going to separate the color of the road from what's going to be in the background, that nice light felt area with the color that's coming across the pond at the front. And Marilyn, it's great to have you with us also from San Antonio. Really appreciate your comments and your support. Okay, so this and some great work by Marilyn as well. Thank you for posting that. In the foreground here, where we're picking up some more water, we've got our riverbed. Let's have a little gap there where you're going to pull that. You've got your colors that are horizontal around your water, around the ponds. Okay, because that water is going to reflect the sky, right? You want it to reflect the sky. You're always looking to be able to create tonal contrast. And but the trick, once we've surrounded that, you get the opportunity to blend it in and that sort of thing. All right, so Mike and Marion also are great local support, and Carrie Hine, who I think does this to make me look bad because her work is absolutely phenomenal. Carrie Hine and her family. It's always very, very cool to have your support from Estonway. Now we're just going to drop a couple of verticals into the foreground here. It would be nice if you didn't post your work. Thanks very much, Carrie, because it does actually make us look bad. It makes everyone else feel bad as well. That was a joke. Okay, great. So a couple of sweet little horizontal lines here on the side going across there. Okay, so we get to show that the top of this water is actually flat by having straight lines going down and some horizontals going sideways. And then last of all, we come in to do our little tree here at the front, which is going to be very different we try and be quite exciting in the way we splash around about it. So you can see the way the brush strokes flick out. Let's get up a little bit. Let's just bend that up. All right, let's flick that out. And by flicking, we create a very different texture that comes off the top there. All right, a very different texture. And that creates a nice little bit of shade that might exist down the bottom there. But also, again, with our hairstylists on the left hand here, it gives some real fuzz like in the third Transformers movie. Those little cretins there. Okay, and what we get then is now this whole middle zone has been left a little bit vacant, but what we do get is the option to bring in a little bit of that scrub that exists there. And I'm going to give you a little chance to finish scribbling away on the stem of this tree here, where you can bring in a little bit of a scribble. In the background here, we again have our hairstylists on the left there. Leave the gaps of light in between so that you continue to have that tonal contrast. But what you want then is just where we had our horizontal line at the back there, let's bring in our horizon, sneak it in there. All right, and then what we've got is there, verticals. Nice, well done. Let's get those little stems to come in there at the back. And I'm just dragging my brush down, bringing a little bit of that ink into the thing, making sure that I'm not obliterating it. I just want a little bit of that to be softened off in the background there. Because what we can do with that is that you create a little bit of softness. Cheryl has a profile picture with Rambo. Nice. Great work. Okay. Oh, right. So what my point was that you pick up a little bit of this ink that goes down the bottom here. In the last 2 minutes, you guys have been such stars, is that we're going to just use a little bit of that ink that we pick up and just do a stabbing where you might have put a bit of ink. We pick up a little bit of that ink and we just do stabbing with our brush. You may not have a fuzzy brush, whatever brush you've got, you can just put little stabs in the background there. All right, so that creates a little bit of texture. And then we should be good to go with that. But what we haven't been able to put in the foreground here is the bottom left-hand side of our picture is perhaps a little bit vacant in that it needs a bit more of what usually happens when you come up to these bridges. We had a little H shape. All right, and my pen is now running out. But what we have is thank you. A little, there we go, little parallel shapes next to each other. And I don't know if those of you that are sitting there at joined us from Falcon College, what we would do there, those little signs, what do they look like? The chevron pattern going up to the bridge. They usually have these little lines that are going diagonally across the left. All right, so that they let's zoom in on there that you can see those little lines there. And then off the bottom there, we can just scribble. It shows you don't disappear off. It's a nice little reflective thing. They're saying the bridge is here. It's coming up. Careful. And usually when that was underwater, you knew it's perhaps best to stop and get your fins out. All right. So on this side here, this gallery is actually at home that I'm working from. So the scattering across the floor is our two doggies that have actually been very good this evening. They haven't destroyed the noise barriers. Okay, so that's the last part that we're doing there. Just a little bit as we come across the bridge here. What you can do is you can have a couple of lines that are again those parallel lines, but then also a little bit of horizontal lines in the foreground here because it creates some lovely texture, like it's got a little bit of erosion there, some real maybe you've got a puncture here and you've got your pad out and your ink pen, your new Pilot Fineliner, and you're just going to wait for somebody to maybe be a help there whilst you're doing your watching and identifying all the little cracks. And the thing is, these little characteristics are the things that make it unique. All the little things that you think are imperfections are actually the things that make you unique. You think it's not what it is that we don't have. And it's so amazing being a part of life every day where we have the opportunity to reflect and sometimes when we're not perfect, but I'm very lucky to live with an extraordinary positive human who keeps telling me, we are very lucky, and be grateful for what we do have. So just before we go to bed this evening, we can say that what we usually like to do is we usually like to say, what is it that we are grateful for? What can we be grateful for during the day? And it is perhaps to be doing something different. And today you certainly did something very different. You can give yourselves a round of applause for achieving amazingness. And thank you very much to Dave van Wyk from Falcon College for the inspirational idea to be able to involve people. And I hope you've enjoyed this evening. Remember that it is possible to make art. Everybody can make art. So don't lose your Pilot Fineliner. Appreciate the little things in life. And we'll be right here again next week. Same time, same place. So we look forward to seeing you then.